Good evening. It's Friday the 3rd of October and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Flight resumption. India-China restore direct flights after 5 years. Unexpected attack. Terrorist attack near synagogue kills 2. AI celebrity. AI creation debuts as Hollywood's newest star.
From Colombo, this is World News Tonight with Amarsha Fernando.
Good evening once again. India and China are set to resume direct flights this month after 5 years of hiatus, signaling a cautious thaw in bilateral relations. The first route to reopen will continue to Kolkata and Guangzhou, with services resuming on October 26. The move follows recent diplomatic engagements aimed at normalizing ties.
The resumption of direct flights between India and China marks a significant step in the gradual normalization of their bilateral relations, which had been strained following the 2020 border clash in the Himalayas. The suspension of direct flights since then had been a symbol of the ongoing tensions. In August of this year, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited New Delhi, where he emphasized the importance of enhancing mutual trust and cooperation between the two nations. The visit paved the way for discussions on resuming direct air services and addressing other areas of bilateral concern. China is India's largest trading partner, yet the trade relationship has been marked by a significant imbalance. The trade deficit with China stands at approximately $99.2 billion. During his recent visit to China, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi raised concerns about this deficit and stressed the need for a more balanced trade relationship. The resumption of direct flights is expected to facilitate increased business exchanges, tourism and people-to-people contact, contributing to the gradual normalization of bilateral exchanges. Despite the positive developments in air connectivity, challenges remain, particularly concerning the disputed border areas. Both nations have held several rounds of talks to de-escalate tensions and establish mechanisms for maintaining peace along the border.
Protests in Karachi intensified yesterday as demonstrators rallied against government policies following deadly unrest in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. The Awami Action Committee led the march demanding reforms in regional governance. Meanwhile, in Mufazzabad, clashes between protesters and police have resulted in at least 8 deaths over 4 days.
In Karachi, thousands took to the streets yesterday expressing solidarity with the ongoing protests in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. The Awami Action Committee, a coalition of civil rights groups, led the demonstration, calling for the government to address issues such as the privileges of politicians and bureaucrats in the region. Shaukat Nawaz Mir, a prominent leader of the alliance, stated that the protests were in response to the perceived misuse of reserved legislative seats, which activists argue have been exploited to manipulate regional governance. The demonstrators are also demanding subsidies on essential services like food and electricity. Authorities have responded by cutting off phone and internet access to the region, limiting the flow of information. Despite these measures, protests have continued with businesses, schools and transportation largely shut down since Monday. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has established a committee to address the ongoing clashes and invited protesters to negotiate. The violence in Pakistan-administered Kashmir has drawn attention to the broader political dynamics in the region. The Awami Action Committee's demands include the elimination of reserved seats for representatives from other parts of Pakistan, which they claim have been used to install or topple regional governments.
In East Java, Indonesia, the collapse of the Al-Khazaini Islamic boarding school has claimed 9 lives and left over 50 students missing. The building failed during afternoon prayers as unauthorized extra-floors strained its foundation. Rescue teams are working urgently with heavy machinery amidst fears for survivors' fates.
Authorities say the collapse was triggered by a foundation unable to support ongoing construction of additional floors. Local reports indicate that 2 extra upper levels were being added without proper permits, compounding stress on already weak supports. Search teams have excavated tunnels and used sensors to detect movement, but as of Thursday, no further signs of life have been found. Families have agreed to use heavy machinery, acknowledging that the golden period for survivors may have passed. Many of missing are teenage boys aged 13 to 19 praying in a hall when the collapse occurred. The tragedy has spotlighted safety standards at pesantren schools, which serve millions across Indonesia. Calls are growing for stricter oversight and accountability.
South Korean President Lee Jae-myung today urged North Korea to reopen communication channels and resume family reunions for those separated by the 1950 to 1953 Korean War. He called it humanitarian duty, noting over 36,000 South Koreans are awaiting contact with relatives beyond the heavily fortified border.
On the first day of the extended Chuseok holiday, a time for a family gathering for many Koreans, President Lee Jae-myung met people who fled to South Korea from the north during the Korean War. He was in Ganghwa-gun County, close to the inter-Korean border. The attendees were people in their 80s and 90s who left their hometowns in the north and have been separated from their families for a long time.
If I get a chance, I want to visit my hometown. That's my wish. I hope you, Mr. President, make great efforts for that.
Noting that inter-Korean relations have been completely cut off and become hostile due to politics, the president sent a message directed toward the north. He added he hoped for the current hostile mood between the two Koreas to be eased soon for communication and exchange, and vowed to make efforts to speed up progress.
Let's go in for a short commercial break. More world news coming right after this. And welcome back. A deadly attack outside a Manchester synagogue on Yom Kippur has left 2 people dead and 3 seriously injured. The assailant, identified as a 35-year-old Jihad al-Shamin, was shot dead by police. Authorities have decided the incident a terrorist attack and arrested 3 suspects on terrorism-related charges.
Emergency services and first responders raced to the scene of a fatal attack on a synagogue in Manchester. Police cordoned off the area in the aftermath. The attack timed for when services would be held at the Heaton Park Synagogue for Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. Witnesses describe hearing shots.
I heard bang bang, and then we heard the helicopters, we heard the siren, then we heard it was gunshot and there'd been a terrorist attack in the synagogue.
I mean, it's horrifying. It is horrifying. Unfortunately, in the last year, we've witnessed a whole load of terror and attacks against the Jewish people.
Police say an assailant drove a car at people outside the synagogue and then started stabbing everyone nearby. The alleged suspect was shot by police. The synagogue was full of worshippers and police have since evacuated the building. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer rushed back from an EU summit in Copenhagen.
The attack in Manchester this morning is absolutely shocking, and all of our thoughts are with those affected. I'm already able to say that additional police assets are being deployed to synagogues across the country, and we will do everything to keep our Jewish community safe.
Since Israel's invasion of Gaza in the wake of Hamas's October 7th attack, the UK has seen a record level of anti-Semitic incidents.
Tensions escalate between Russia and France over the detention of the Beresi, a tank suspected of being part of Russia's Shadow Fleet. French authorities boarded the vessel of Saint-Nazaire, arresting 2 crew members for failing to verify nationality and comply with new orders. President Macron endorsed the investigation, while Kremlin condemns the action as piracy.
Russia's so-called Shadow Fleet funds 30 to 40% of its war in Ukraine. Halt them and you halt Moscow's capacity to finance its operations. That's according to President Emmanuel Macron, who is calling on Europe to dial up the pressure and even to follow France's lead in obstructing the vessels.
First, because you can identify the presence of a shadow fleet on your coast. Second, because you can make sure that they are compliant with or not with international rules. But third, and it's very important, because you kill the business model by detaining, even for days or weeks, these vessels.
The French Navy boarded a tanker known currently as the Barocai earlier in the week and arrested 2 of its crew members. They were charged with refusing to obey a summons and for failing to justify the ship's nationality. The public prosecutor's office in the northwestern city of Brest, near where the boat was anchored, announced Thursday that the captain will face trial in February. The other detainee had been released. The Barocai is one of 800 to 1,000 tankers, estimated to be part of a fleet used to circumvent Western sanctions on Russian oil. Shipping data shows it left a port near St. Petersburg on September 20th, heading towards India. But its route and timing has raised suspicions that it was also involved in launching the drones that disrupted Denmark's air traffic between the 22nd and 28th. Macron stopped short of directly linking the two incidents. He did, however, say that NATO and the Coalition of the Willing would meet to discuss joint actions to stop the vessels, in addition to current EU sanctions. Russian President Vladimir Putin called France's detention of the tanker piracy without grounds.
In the Czech Republic election, the leading populist ANO party pledges to reduce military aid to Ukraine, raising fears its victory could end Prague's strong support for Kyiv. The outcome may reorient nation's foreign policy and test its standing within the EU and the NATO.
In Mariana's restaurant in Prague, the regulars include many Ukrainians who arrived after the Russian invasion, against which her brother is fighting on the front line.
Many Czechs used to come to ask if we needed help or to tell us that they supported us against the Russian aggression. It's much less now.
Ukrainian refugees have not only filled the labour shortages from which the Czech economy was suffering, they're now also contributing to the national budget via taxes and social charges.
Since the beginning of the election campaign, populist rhetoric against Ukrainians has been gaining ground, with many terrible comments online telling us to go back home or go fight on the front.
Ukrainians, as well as the aid they receive, are being targeted by certain political parties, both from the far left and the far right, in particular by the party of Czech-Japanese politician Tomio Okamura.
The issue of Ukraine and the number of Ukrainians in the Czech Republic concerns our citizens, for whom it's an important topic, according to the polls. And the fact that the government coalition helps Ukraine and supports the refugees here will be one of the reasons it loses these elections.
Munich airport resumed operations earlier today after drone sightings overnight forced a temporary shutdown. The closure led to the cancellation of 17 flights and diversions of 15 others, stranding nearly 3,000 passengers. Authorities have yet to identify the drone operators, raising concerns about Europe's airspace security.
Munich airport is up and running after an overnight closure following drone sightings. The disruption marks another escalation in Europe's drone crisis following similar incidents in Denmark and Norway. Though official evidence has not yet been put forward, European officials are quick to point the finger at Moscow. At a Sochi summit, President Putin couldn't resist mocking the claims, cracking a joke about airport disruptions in Denmark last week.
I'm not going to do it anymore. I won't send drones to France, Denmark or Copenhagen, maybe Lisbon. But really, where else is it that they're flying to? But seriously, we don't even have drones that can reach Lisbon. We have some, and they have long range. But there are no targets, which is the main thing. This is also one of the ways to escalate the situation in general, to fulfill the Washington boss's orders and increase defense spending.
But European countries are planning a sharp, coordinated response, including an anti-drone wall along the borders with Ukraine, Belarus and Russia. EU leaders gathered in Copenhagen earlier this week. At the summit, French President Macron stressed the urgent need for a fortified European defence, warning that the bloc was in a permanent confrontation with Russia.
We are ready, and we are in the position to preserve our air and our territorial integrity. We are ready on the eastern flank of NATO, and we are ready at the same time, and on top of that, and without reducing this commitment, to provide security guarantees for Ukraine.
President Zelensky, whose country would sit on the same side as Russia and Belarus of the proposed anti-drone wall, praised EU leaders for their swift response and for taking the Russian threat seriously.
Moroccan Prime Minister Aziz Akanaj has called for dialogue following 6 consecutive nights of youth-led protests demanding better education and healthcare. The unrest organized by the online group Gen Z 212 has escalated into riots, resulting in 3 deaths and over 640 injuries. Authorities report that 70% of participants are minors.
A bank set ablaze in the city of Saleh, not far from the Moroccan capital. Scenes of destruction visible as anti-government demonstrations take hold for the 5th night in a row. Anger in Morocco mounting over the declining state of public services. The youth-led protests have called out widespread corruption and appears to have caught the government off guard. While the movement gathers steam, not everyone is convinced of the methods being used.
I was here. I tried to reason with them. I told them, don't do this. This isn't right. But they didn't listen. Most of them were just kids. Young, clueless. They didn't even know what they were doing. They set fire to the bank, to the pharmacy. They took the medicine. No shame at all. They grabbed computers. They threw water at them. Tried to stop them. Nothing. They wouldn't listen.
We must tell them that they should hold a peaceful demonstration because the law has returned to these young people. Their rights and the conditions they are demanding are legitimate.
Morocco's leaderless Gen Z 212 group is calling for reforms to the country's public health and education sectors. The protests have spread to new cities in Morocco despite a lack of permissions from authorities. The demonstrations, which are among the biggest in years, come as the government pours in billions to gear up for the World Cup in 2030.
Let's go in for a short commercial break. More world news coming right after this. Welcome back. Hollywood's newest actress is making waves, and she is not human. Tilly Norwood, a fully AI-generated character created by Dutch producer Aline van der Vellen, has sparked controversy after talent agents expressed interest in signing her. The move rallies ethnically concerned about AI's role in entertainment, echoing fears from recent actors and writer strikes.
She's Hollywood's new it girl. Her name is Tilly Norwood.
Let's get to know each other, and thanks for watching.
Her photos and videos are all over social media. But Tilly is already causing a major controversy. Why? Because she's not real. She's AI generated.
Tilly Norwood, 100% AI generated.
Tilly is the creation of a Dutch comedian who says multiple talent agents have shown interest in signing the AI actress. The blowback is intense. This is really, really scary, says actress Emily Blunt.
It's a little bit of an unfair advantage, but you know what? Bring it on.
Yeah.
Because you can always tell them from us.
Yeah.
We move differently, our faces move differently, our bodies move differently.
AI protections was a key sticking point during the writer and actor strikes back in 2023. Now their fears seem to be coming true. The union is opposed to the replacement of human performers by synthetics.
At 58, Tom Silo is proving age is no barrier to chasing dreams. The Lycoming College Warriors' newest defensive lineman has taken the field in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, decades after the most athletic retire. His inspiring journey was set back to a second chance in rewriting what's possible in college football.
There's a promising player, number 40. He's freshman Tom Silo, and he's starting his college football career at the age of 58. You heard right, 58 years old. Tom's a defensive lineman with the Lycoming College Warriors in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Tom dreamed of playing college football, but never got the chance.
I never went to college, but for years I just always had this burning desire in the back of my head to play college football. I have this competitive spirit and this fire that still burns inside me.
Several of his much younger teammates were a bit skeptical, but he's won them over. Tom's inspiring journey is rubbing off on others.
I've earned the right to be on this sideline and be in that uniform. And the guys, I'm just Tom now. I'm not the old guy, I'm just Tom. And it's cool.
And with that, we come to the end of today's edition of World News Tonight. With the hopes of seeing you again, I'm Amasha Fernando, and we leave you tonight with the visuals of Kylie Rosalia, FKA Twigs, signing as Caparelli. Also, don't forget to send us your feedback through email at feedback.ad24english@derana.lk or via WhatsApp at 076 805 7933. Thank you for watching and have a great weekend.